Hey guys, welcome back to History Decaying. As you can see, slightly different location. I'm actually sat in my living room. I'm going to record a ghost story. So this is what got me into the paranormal, what got me interested in, what got me believing, and ultimately what got me investigating the paranormal. There's a few things I want to say before I get into that though. First thing, obviously, first video of the new year, so Happy New Year. Hope yours is good. If you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, you'll see that I've decided I'm going to cut all my hair off this year and donate it to a charity called the Little Princess Trust, who make wigs for children going through chemotherapy, have cancer, amongst other illnesses. There'll be a link down in the description below to go to my Just Giving page. There's also one on my Instagram. Doesn't work on TikTok anymore for some reason, but anyway. I just want to say that I'm sorry last year wasn't as big as I promised it was going to be. I fought a lot of battles mentally late last year, into this year. That's why I've struggled to get a video up until now. But I'm taking steps to win them battles, and part of that is cutting my hair off. It's taking control back of my life. So I'm sick of living in the past. I'm sick of letting the people of yesterday determine my tomorrow. So that changes from now. But anyway, that's not why you're here. You're not here to hear me ramble on about my mental health issues. You're here to hear me speak about my paranormal experiences. So these paranormal experiences I'm going to talk about take part in 3 different houses. One in the village I grew up in. It's a family member's house. One is, it's actually 4 houses. There's 2 houses that they were friends of mine, and 1 house that was my brother's. So I'm going to start off with the house in the village that I grew up in. And this was actually my cousin's house. So as you can imagine, spent a hell of a lot of time in that house. The first story, it happened when I was early teens. We'd not long moved to Wales. And so basically what happened is, you'll see me looking down, sorry, I've got the notes written down. I remember these stories like off the top of my head. But as soon as I put a camera on myself, my mind goes blank. So I've just written some notes, sort of like prompts. So, hi Delta. The first story comes from, when we just moved there, young teenagers, maybe 12, 13. So we were sat on the very top floor of the house, which was my cousin Jordan's bedroom, and we were playing a WWE SmackDown game. Don't know which one, but that's not important. So we were sat there, and we were playing the games, and we were playing 1v1, and we were... we were 1v1 in matches, and what happened was, on the loading screen, you get 2 characters come up, or like a wrestling thing, and when that came up, we heard this deep growl, like horrendous growl, and me and my brother have been playing this game for years, and we'd never heard that, so we sat, and we, obviously it scared us, we were all teenagers or younger, but we, in our little debunking minds, were like, right, we're going to recreate this. So we actually went through and we selected the same characters, the same match type, the same venue. We even done this over and over and over again until we got the same loading screen come up. And we never heard the growl again. The top floor of this house always sat a bit weird with me. Actually, both my stories from this house are from the very top floor of this house. So the second one is, I'm going to fast forward a couple of years to when I want to say I was about 16. I think I'd just started college, and I was with this girl from Birmingham, from Dudley Way, West Midlands anyway. And she'd come over to Wales because her best pal was dating, and as far as I'm aware, still is, with my cousin Jordan. But anyway, we're together, and we decided to go up to bed. and we were sleeping on the very top floor of the house. Now, at the time of this, there was a lot of renovations going on the top floor. So the floors were bare floorboards, there was stud walls, and there was just bare plasterboard walls. And it was quite a hollow, noisy room. And there was, unfortunately, at that point, no mains electricity on the top floor because it was being rewired. But it was the only free bed, so we took it. So she's asleep next to me. It's a single bed. She's asleep next to me. And I look towards the door, and I see this black mass outline of a figure standing at the door. So I pull my phone out, and it's not like modern phones. We didn't have good flashlights, good torches on phones at that time. So I turn my torch on, I point it towards the door, and the figure goes. So I'm like, oh, it's just my imagination. So I turn the light off, and it comes back. And I must have sat for a good half an hour maybe, flicking my torch on, off, pointing it at this door. And this mass, this black mass in a human shape, would disappear as soon as I turn the light on and reappear as soon as I turn my light off. Now, I know what you're thinking, like maybe it was someone playing pranks on you. Now, this house, I'll give you a bit of backstory. We used it a bit as a party house. We could drink there. We could have our respective partners there at the time. We had a lot of fun there. We played a lot of music. We were in a lot of bands together as teenagers. We were always playing guitar and music with each other. That's just what our teenage life was music, skating, and women. You know, typical teenagers. And there was a lot of people in the house at the time. I think we'd had a party that night. So my first thought was, oh, one of these dickheads is playing a trick on me. Knowing that I'd sort of semi-believed in the paranormal. And I thought, oh, they're just playing a trick. But with the way the floors were and the way that top floor was, with no carpet, no rugs, no nothing, it was just bare floorboard, bare walls. Some of them had plasterboard, some of them didn't. There is no way someone could have appeared and disappeared that fast anyway, let alone that I wouldn't have heard them running as soon as I turned the torch on. So yeah, that was the house that my cousins lived in. The next few ones, or the next story is, or the next experience is from not long after I met some friends from South Wales. There was a lot of weird experiences with these people, but this one particularly stands out in my mind from this first house. So we're sat in the living room. There's like 6, 7, maybe more people sat in this living room. And we're all just shooting the shit, chatting, having a laugh, having a carry on, doing what you do with mates. And this house was like the place where everybody went to hang out. Everybody turned up there. You know, most nights we're up till 2, 3 in the morning, chatting and shooting the shit and having a laugh and what have you. So we're all sat around. Some of us are sat on the floor, some are sat on sofas, whatever. The kids are in bed. Yeah, we're just having a good time. And it must have been about midnight, 1 o'clock. And like I said, we're all just talking, and we hear this horrendous, blood-curdling scream, woman's scream. And we all stop, and we're looking at each other, and we're looking around going like, did you just fucking hear what I heard? And we're all going, yeah, I think we did. So we're talking about it. Someone goes upstairs, check on the kids, make sure they're okay. A couple of us went outside to make sure there was nothing happening. Now it's on a reasonably quiet, like, local authority estate, like family housing estate. But we were checking to make sure no one was being attacked, no one was in danger. You know, it wasn't a woman screaming because she wanted help. There was no one there. So we sort of spoke about it a bit because we're all pagans, all into the paranormal, and we're all like, so much just fucking happened. But But we kind of put it to our minds, you know, people go home, we go to bed, we go to sleep, whatever. We checked with neighbours the next morning, being like, did you hear a scream about 12, 1 o'clock? They're like, nah. People that were up didn't hear a thing. So we're like, that's fucking weird. And then later that afternoon, my friend gets a phone call and finds out that another friend's mum had passed away that night at around 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. And we believe, and I believe, that what we heard was a banshee. And a banshee is, she screams to signal death. And that, I believe, is what we heard that night, was a banshee scream. So now I'm going to go forward a bit in time to the same friends, same group of friends, but I'd actually moved in with them because I'd been having a lot of issues with the village I grew up in, where I lived. There was a lot of people that had issues with me because of my appearance, because of some shit that happened, shit that can get put very far in the past. So yeah, I'd moved in with them, and everything was harmonious and good. It was quite a nice house, big house, but again, some odd goings on. So the first one I want to speak about is me and one of my friends. We'd done a Sunday dinner, we'd done a roast dinner, and we kind of neglected to do the dishes a bit, but we decided we'll stay up a wee bit later and we'll get the dishes done. So she's washing the dishes, I'm drying and putting away, everybody else is in bed. Like literally everybody, the kids are in bed, you know, the dad's in bed, it's just me and this person washing the dishes. And we hear the front door go, like, open and close. I'm like, oh, maybe someone forgot something, maybe someone that was here earlier in the night forgot something, they've just nipped back to grab it. So we shout out, no answer. I went through to look to see who it was. Now, the dogs hadn't reacted, and the dogs were very territorial. If you didn't know them, you weren't around the dogs. But the dogs didn't react, so I went to have a look, and there's no one there. I went back into the kitchen, and we think nothing of it. Washing the dishes, drying, putting away. And the front door goes again. Fuck. So I went and checked again. No one had come in. I opened the door, looked up and down the street, made sure there was no kids, you know, playing pranks or whatever. Shut the door, shut the porch door. Went back to doing what we were doing. The door goes again. The fuck? So at this point, the person I was with, she says, go upstairs, check on the kids, check that he's still in bed, my mate's still in bed. So I went upstairs, all 3 kids are in bed, sound asleep, and so is my mate. So, came back downstairs and I was like, nah, everybody's in bed. So we go back to doing what we're doing. And the front door goes again, we're like the porch door, and then the front door goes, and we're like, that's the wrong order. If someone's coming in, it should be front porch. So, again, I went to check the car to make sure that my mate wasn't sleepwalking, because this house had a habit of making people sleepwalk. So I went to make sure that he wasn't sleepwalking, he hadn't got in the car. Now, luckily, the keys were hung up next to the TV, so I knew he didn't have his keys on him, but I was making sure he wasn't in the car. No, he's not in the car. Went upstairs, he's still fast asleep in bed. Okay, cool. Back downstairs, nah, he's in his bed. So at this point we're starting to think someone's trying to tell us something. So don't know how many times exactly it happened, but at one point we got annoyed and we decided to lock the door. I locked the front door. It was a reasonably safe neighbourhood. We didn't think, you know, to lock the door until we were actually going to bed. So we locked the door. Silence for the rest of the night. Now, we believe there was a spirit in that house saying, hey, you need to lock this fucking door. And once we did, it went dead silent. Now, we never looked into, and I've never looked into, to see if anything happened that night around the area. I couldn't now because I can't remember the date. But as far as we're aware at the time, nothing happened. There was no crimes, no break-ins, no nothing like that. So now on to the second story from this house. And again, it's me, my friend, and his wife. And we're all sat in the living room and we're watching TV. Kids are in bed. And we've got all the lights turned off because that's the best way to watch TV in as little light as possible, I think, anyway. So we're watching, I don't know if it was like Sons of Anarchy or Supernatural, or it'll be something along them lines. So we're sat on a couch like this. I'm sat one end, they're sat the other end. It was a big couch. And we're all looking out, watching the telly. And there's a cutout, pretty similar to this, but between the living room and the dining room. And we start to see lights flashing and flickering inside the dining room. Now, my mate's fallen asleep. He could fall asleep anywhere. And me and his wife look at each other and like, did you see that? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, could have been a car going past. But then they keep appearing like little balls of light just in the room. And if it was just white, I'd say it was car lights. If it was just red, I'd say it was brake lights. But they were red, they were blue, they were green, they were white, they were yellow, they were orange, they were pink, they were every colour you can imagine. These little balls flashing. And then we started to tapping coming from that room. I'm like, what the fuck? So I got up with my shitty old Nokia, like early touchscreen phones. My shitty little Nokia, but you had to use a stylus for the touchscreen. It was that sort of touchscreen. And I snapped a picture from into that room. And I look at it briefly and I'm like, oh, there's nothing there. And then I look at it again. And clear as day, stood by the door, is 4 people. A man, a woman, a child, and a baby in arms. Now, this wasn't a young house. It wasn't by any stretch of the imagination old house for Welsh standards. But it wasn't a young house. And what that room actually used to be was what they call the parlour. Now, back in Victorian time, the parlour used to be where they put dead family members the night before the funeral. And a lot of time, the only time people got pictures with family members back then is when somebody had died. And what it looked like to me is this family who were dressed in Victorian era clothing were posing for a death portrait. Now, I don't know if I still have this picture. I'm going to hunt my hard drives to see if I can find it. And hopefully I can. But I'm not making any promises. If I do have it, it'll be in here. There you go. If it's not there, I don't have it anymore. But that picture is so burnt into my mind that I can still see what they looked like. He was this respectable man with a big mustache. She was this short little, not dumpy woman, but she wasn't a skinny woman. She had this big black dress on. She had her hair in a bonnet. The child, the little boy, was well dressed, but wasn't in wearing a suit age, but he was well dressed. And all you could see of the baby was the little bonnet on its head, wrapped in a blanket, and it's burnt into my mind, that image. Excuse me. So, hopefully, that image is there for you. Now I'm going to move into the last one, and I'm going to go back in time to go forward in time. So, the house I was telling you about where we heard the banshee scream. Now, a number of years later, after probably, 5-10 years at least, my brother moved into a house opposite this house. And it was a weird house, I'll say that to start with. Now, my brother moved there just as my first niece, Talia, was being born. Because the house they were in was far too small to have a baby in, far too small. So they moved in there. And it was just after Talia was born. It was about a week after she was born. And me and Danny went down to visit. Obviously, my first niece, I wanted to be there as soon as possible. So we went down to visit. And it was great, cuddles with a baby. There's no better feeling. So we're having a good time, cuddles with a baby. But one night, my brother and his wife Pete had gone to bed. Early days of having a baby, when the baby sleeps, you sleep. So me and Danny had stayed up a wee bit, chatting, watching TV, don't know what we were doing, but we stayed up a bit, and eventually we decided to go to bed. So we were sleeping in the back bedroom, what was to become Talia's bedroom. So we'd got ready, we'd got into bed, and all of a sudden we hear the back door rattling, like violently rattling. Protective mode takes over me. I leap out of bed, I leap into my jeans and my shoes, I run out the door, I run down the stairs. I say run, I jumped. I hit 3, maybe 4 steps on the way down. I bolted to the back door, and there's no one there. There's a big glass pane, clear glass pane in the door. Nobody's there. I ripped that fucking door open. I checked the garden, the gate's shut, there's no one in there. I was out for blood. Backstory, tiny little bit of backstory. If you know me, I will protect kids with all that I have. And the first thought that went through my head was Talia. I need to protect her. So I was gone. I was fucking after this person. But there was no one there. Now, you could say he ran away, but in the time it took me to get into my jeans, down the stairs and to that door, there is no way in hell anybody could have got out of that garden. Not a hope. I would have seen them. I would have found them. There was no one there. Danny tried to calm me down a bit, saying it was probably a person. They've ran away, you've scared them away. So we called the police. Police didn't give 2 flying fucks. No big surprise. But I am, to this day, 100% convinced that something spiritual was rattling that door. Now, I don't want to solely associate Talia's birth with this, but maybe a coincidence, I don't know. The week before Talia was born, my family lost a dear family friend in Sheila. Now, I don't know if it was her coming in to say hello, say I'm alright, I'm here. Don't know. I don't think it was. I think it had a more negative connotation to it. Now, the reason I believe this now more than I did back then is my brother moved out of the house. My brother's got 3 little girls, 3 beautiful girls, Talia, Thea and Trinity. Hi girls. They do watch my videos, surprisingly. But they moved out into a bigger house, and this was only a 2-bed house, but they moved out into a bigger house just down the road, like a bit up the road from where they were. And Connor went down to this house to get some stuff out at night. Now, I'd never fully liked the feeling of this house, but it was never an overwhelming negative feeling. But Connor went in there, and you think I can be antagonistic towards spirits. My brother's worse. You will probably see that in August. Little hint for you there. But my brother's worse than me. And he said when he went into that house and he got the stuff he needed and he was leaving, he couldn't wait to get out because there was something evil, malicious, and nasty in that house with him. But was it there all them years earlier when Talia was born? I don't know. And I'll leave it up to you to decide. So that's it for now, guys. That is a couple more of my paranormal stories. I'm going to do at least one more of these, probably more, because I have so many stories to tell of things I've experienced with the paranormal. But my promise to you for 2026 is there will be more videos, there will be more exploring, there will be more investigations, there will be these ghost stories. I'm going to start my murder documentary series on serial killers of the UK. I'm going to start my myths and legends series. I'm spitballing new ideas with Danny on videos that I can do that are easier to film and edit than the paranormal and the exploring ones. But my promise to you is there will be more History Decaying content in 2026. If you want to see more, head over to TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all History Decaying. Type it in, it's me. You will see more behind the scenes stuff, more of the stuff I get up to, more of this little menace. But yeah, guys, I just want to say thanks for all the support you've given me in 2024, 2025, and I hope you'll continue to support me into 2026. It's been a mega journey for me. This is so therapeutic and cathartic to my mental health to speak about things and to know there's a community that listens and understands. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. But as always, guys, I'll see you all soon.